Hello and welcome to the Welliverse with Tim and Chris.
Hello and welcome to episode 2. I'm Chris.
And I'm Tim.
And this week we're going to be talking about motivation to exercise. And we're pretty excited because we're coming to you from our lovely South Coast Christmas holiday. And it's just really beautiful. We're about 20 metres away from the ocean right now and it's lovely.
And can you hear the rain? And can you hear the soothing sounds of the beach?
Well, we can. And it makes us very happy. So anyway, as we said, this week's episode is titled Motivation to Exercise. And this is a topic that we're really passionate about, not just personally for ourselves, but now as part of our career. We're doing small group personal training, and motivation is just a huge factor for our clients and for the people that we meet day to day. So we thought it was a really interesting one. It's something that there's no getting around. Everyone needs it if they want to get fit or be motivated to exercise. It's just what's got to happen. So we thought we'd do a bit of research and talk to you about that this week.
So we will get through sort of the deeper theoretical stuff about motivation, and there are a few people over the past 50 years who have done their PhD and tried to figure out what motivates people to do what they do. Most of the research is either educational theory or workplace theory, but we're going to look at those and think about how that can be applied in an exercise-based setting.
Yeah.
But before we do that, Chris, what have you put your energy into this week?
What have I put my energy into? I would say this week has been all about relationships for me. So Christmas time is a huge event, and funnily enough, often it brings with it a lot of tension, because when family groups get together, particularly once we're all adults, we all have our fussy particular ways that we like to do things, and we may not agree with how one person wants to cook the Christmas ham, or what type of food needs to be made, or whose house we're going to gather at. I know it sounds all really trivial, but I have put a lot of energy this week into trying to just enjoy the people's company that I'm in, and to be present and to be pleasant. And yeah, that does take energy. Sometimes it's easier to not worry about other people's feelings, but I've put energy into loving. Yep.
Love it.
What about you, Tim?
I reckon this week I have put energy into just relaxing. No projects, no major dramas, just we're on holidays and recovery. Just chill and just
great.
Not for a while.
I think it's great because people think it doesn't take any energy to relax, but I feel like it totally does, especially when you're a person who's always on the go normally, and we love that. But to remind yourself to just take some time and chill, it's a great thing. Awesome. Well, we love that question about where you're putting your energy, because it tells a lot about your priorities, your values, and it's so applicable this week to our topic, which is your motivation. So I think we should start out by defining motivation. We both went away and did some research. Now, normally we would be, first going through the history of our topic, and then the current day context, and then doing anecdotes and things. But we decided motivation is just such a, broad and abstract category that we are going a little bit off what we thought we'd do, and we're going to just talk to you about the interesting things we found out while we were researching. So, when I looked up what is motivation, there was a few different definitions that I came across, and I really liked all of them, so I'll read them out quickly. First one I came across was, motivation is an internal state or condition that activates behavior and gives it direction. The second one was a desire or want that energizes and directs goal-oriented behavior. And the third one was the influence of needs and desires on the intensity and direction of behavior. So just let those sink in and think about the two main things that were present in each definition. For me, when I wrote those down, I underlined the word activate and energizes. I thought that was really interesting. So when you're motivated to do something, it's not just that you want to do it. Like, yes, you want to do something, but that desire actually energizes you in the direction of that goal. It actually gives you energy to do something. So it's not just knowing that you should or knowing that you want to, it is then having the energy to carry out whatever needs to happen to achieve it. So yeah, energy and activation of behavior was one thing. The other thing was the direction of behavior. So that was a word present in all of those definitions of motivation. The direction that your behavior is going to go. So motivation is something that gives you energy, which you then use in a particular direction to achieve something specific or something. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah. Like, I reckon, the most common thought about motivation, especially in relation to exercise, is, like motivational quotes or posters, and, there's even websites you can just go to that will give you a daily new bit of motivation that says something like, be better than your yesterday, or
Yes.
you're only competing with yourself. So I suppose inherently people know that it's about activating and energizing and giving you a sense of purpose in a direction that you feel that you want to go in.
Yeah.
So,
I love that idea when I read those definitions, because especially when we're talking about your motivation for exercise, your motivation is something that should give you the energy to then do the thing, to then exercise, to move.
And I suppose that's why we wanted to do this podcast.
Yes.
Because, people ask you, what motivates you to get up and do your thing, and how do I get motivation? And, I hate running, but I want to do it. It's like, well, why do you want to do that thing you don't want to do?
Yeah.
So talking about finding lasting motivation and doing something that actually fulfills
Energizes you. Yeah.
It requires possibly a little bit of thought. If you're not already doing it, then maybe you need to figure out what you should be doing differently so that you can find the thing that isn't hard work and just taking an hour of your day, that you prefer to be doing something else.
Yeah, that you realise you're actually battling against. You know, motivation shouldn't be something you're battling to get. It should be something that's energising you. So I think that's a really useful starting point. We are going to talk about a few different theories that we've come across. There's so many out there, so we actually just chose a couple that we feel are going to be really helpful. And we're going to try and relate those, the theories that we discovered to, I guess, different scenarios of people, where people might be at in terms of their motivation to exercise. And hopefully you fit into one of those categories and you can identify with one of the types of motivational stages that we discuss. I think what we found through our discussion is that motivation is such an individual thing because we are all such different people, and we're all at different parts of our knowledge and understanding of exercise and what the point of it is. And so I think we're going to have a bit of fun. But just to put this thought into your brains, I think for motivation to exist, to be present, like if you want to be motivated to exercise, there does need to be 3 key elements. There has to be the desire to achieve a goal, or you have to imagine a certain reward or thing that you want to work towards. That's number 1, the desire. Number 2, I would say you need to have some idea of the pathway or the steps that it's going to take for you to achieve that goal or fulfill that desire. And number 3 would be you actually need the energy to do it. at the energy and the tools. So, yeah, those three things: desire, pathway, energy.
So when you start to break down and look deeper into types of motivation and what motivation actually is, the most simplistic way to classify different types of motivation is to split them into extrinsic or intrinsic types of motivation. So probably the easiest way to explain it is to think about a workplace. An extrinsic, that's something that's outside of you. An extrinsic motivator is something that you get given. So in the workplace example, it's going to be your wage or a bonus or something that you're taking home.
Yeah.
As compared to an intrinsic motivator, which is something that is within you already.
Yeah.
So in your workplace, an intrinsic motivator would be
The love of the job.
The love of the job,
Yeah.
job satisfaction, and a sense of purpose that you are fulfilling.
And it's really helpful to relate it back to a job, because pretty much all of us work, even if you think, oh, well, no, I'm a stay-at-home mum. To me, that's a job.
And also, most of us manage to get up every day and get
go
to
and
work
do it.
and get that done.
Yeah.
It's because we've got this pretty strong extrinsic motivator, like, hey, we can't just quit that thing because we
need
bills
money,
to pay.
and also it's just what society expects of us. You know, we're adults, we function, we work.
But the research into workplace motivation is actually aimed more at your managers and your CEOs who are trying to get the most out of their employees. And there's lots of research talking about, well, how can you maximize those extrinsic motivators? If I just pay my staff more money, will I get
better performance,
an equal return on performance? And there's lots of research showing that depending on the task, depending on the situation, depending on current levels of pay, just increasing wages is not exactly going to be the best motivator.
And I think that's because extrinsic motivation, I think, can only get you so far. And I think that comes back to exercise, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And what I feel like with extrinsic and intrinsic motivation is, it's not like extrinsic motivation is bad or not. No, and I actually thought that it kind of was. Like, I always thought, first let's list, in terms of exercise, what would we say is an extrinsic motivator?
Yeah, so for me, a classic extrinsic motivator for someone to exercise would be the physical medal that you get at the end of a fun run. And it's actually something that's in their mind as, like, I will get, even though it's like coated plastic, it's still this physical thing that they want to have on their shelf that is a reward for them.
Yeah, and I was saying to Tim, like, there's some less obvious extrinsic motivation for exercise. For example, we exercise for aesthetic reasons. We want to attain a certain body appearance or shape.
Which is like a fuzzy extrinsic motivator.
Yeah,
it's like a social
acceptance.
Kudos stuff.
Yeah, we want to be one of the people who has their stuff together and looks good and, is fit, in quotation marks. But yeah, that's still an extrinsic motivator, because it's trying to achieve a reward that's sort of not in your mind. It's you're striving for something, a reward for your efforts.
What about intrinsic motivations to exercise?
Well, we had a look at what intrinsic motivation actually is, and I think the simplest way to sort of describe it is you're motivated to do something not because of the end result or a perceived reward, but because you enjoy doing the thing itself, or you see value in the thing itself. So it's not like, yes, the goal still might be there of, I want to lose 5 kilos, or I want to stay fit, or I want to reduce my risk of disease, but that's actually not the reason you're doing it day in, day out. You get up and you go for your run because, heck, you just love running. Heckity heck. And I think what we have sort of uncovered while we've been discussing is that often when people are first setting out and looking for motivation to exercise, if they're not a regular exerciser already, it's often the extrinsic things that are going to be their main motivator to start with, because they just don't know yet what they love doing in terms of exercise, because they haven't had the experience.
And you can't say, I want to go for a run because, it feels
It feels
good
so
when I
good.
get back, because they haven't got to that
No,
point
no,
yet.
they
All
don't.
they've actually
Yeah.
got is a negative sensation
Yes.
of huff, puff, sweat, fatigue, and,
Yeah.
aches and muscle pains that they're not really sure about
So,
yet.
in a sense, their extrinsic motivation to be
Demotivated.
strong enough in spite of
Yeah.
how unenjoyable the activity may be. So there, when I think I'll tell a little bit about my motivation to exercise, because mine has seriously transformed since I started working out. I never exercised until Tim and I were married, and he was saying, come, let's go for a run, and I was just like, well, no, I don't do that. That's not in my book of normal. I don't see the value in it, and it's just because I had not been brought up to have that as a part of my daily life. So for me, motivation was very low. I didn't feel like there was anything particularly that I was missing out on, and yeah, it wasn't until I saw how much Tim enjoyed it and I started feeling, I guess, like I had some kind of responsibility to start looking after my body, and I guess that was my first extrinsic motivation. Well, okay, I should go for a run or I should exercise because it's good for me, because it will help me to get in shape, and like these are all really valid and great reasons to exercise. So, but that, because I didn't know yet, I didn't have any enjoyment for exercise, I hadn't really done it, my motivation was extrinsic. But my motivation to exercise day in, day out, I was being interviewed on a podcast recently, and they said, what motivates you? You do so much exercise, you exercise every day. How do you stay motivated? What do you do when you get home and you just don't feel like it? And I realized then, when I was reflecting, I was like, oh, wow, my motivation has really changed. My energy to exercise doesn't come from a place of wanting to achieve a certain goal anymore. It comes from enjoyment of the activity itself. Because my answer to them was, actually, I don't really have to think about it. I just know that I love doing it, and I might be demotivated to do a particular type of exercise, but I've got enough things in my repertoire now that I love doing, whether it be CrossFit or yoga or running or cycling or, any of those things. I know I enjoy them all, and I know I enjoy them all for different reasons. So now it's just a case of, what kind of movement will I do today? And it's really interesting that you're able to transform your motivation over time from the extrinsic to the intrinsic.
I really think that you have trained your brain through positive reinforcement cycles,
absolutely,
so that you've set yourself up for success, and you've had some support along the way, so that you were able to get a positive feedback loop to say, this is slightly challenging, I am engaged with this thing, there's my effort. Ooh, is there a reward? Yes, there is. I will repeat this cycle, and now it is a positive feedback loop.
And it's almost self-rewarding, because I don't have to wait for the reward. I don't have to wait for, I can now see after a year of running that I've lost 5 kilos. That I don't have to wait for that anymore. It's just, it's rewarding me each time I run, because I get those positive endorphins. I get the feeling of, this has become such a beautiful and positive part of my life. And I think that's a really helpful thing for people who aren't at that point yet, who don't have a love of movement, but really, really want to get fit and be fit. It's hard until you've had the experience of daily consistent exercise, and particularly finding something that you do enjoy doing. It's hard to stay motivated until you're in that positive pattern, and it doesn't happen by accident. I said to myself early on, this is before I had so much exercise experience, I wanted to take ownership over it. I made the choice that exercise was going to be a part of my life, and I guess I searched around until I found the things that felt really good for me, and the people who I could surround myself with that made those feelings even better. You know, you have someone to share it with, someone to talk to about, hey, yeah, how great was that? We did this run, or we lifted those weights and it felt really good. Yeah, how much did you lift? How much did I lift? Not so much comparing, just sharing. So yeah, if you're someone who still feels like they hang their motivation on, okay, like I know I have to go to the gym because I want to be a good person. Like I think the best thing I ever did was worry less about that and just think more about enjoying the activity itself and enjoying the benefits that it brings, not just in terms of the aesthetic reward, but the social benefits, the mental benefits. I have more time for me, I have more energy in my day, all of those things.
And you need to own it as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely.
You know, we have the chance to make decisions, and if you don't value it, then own not valuing it.
Yeah, that's it. It comes down to your priorities.
Yeah.
If you say, oh, I know I should exercise today, but nah.
Yeah, I'm
Really,
too busy to do that.
yeah.
Not really. I actually don't prioritize
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Or there's currently things in your life that are more important to you, that take the cake, and actually that's just the way it is, and that's okay.
I'm not putting a moral judgment on it. I'm just
no.
saying, just own it. It's like, you know, I do value exercise, but not as much as I value seeing my kids.
And that's a very real thing.
If that's going to end up with you resenting your children and all of this stuff, we'll sort that out.
Yeah.
But you've got to own it.
And I do think, though, that the beauty comes from when you can match one thing that you're prioritizing with incidental exercise. So if you say, oh, I don't want to exercise because I want to spend time with my kids, hey, why don't you find a way where you can do both at the same time? Because there are, and that sounds so cheesy, but there are very real ways that you can transform things that you already are doing to include exercise. And I spoke about this in my ebook that I wrote, because a lot of people's barrier isn't, you know, can I physically exercise? It's, well, I don't have the time, or I just don't have the motivation or the energy. And so in my ebook workout program, I wrote, you know, you're just going to have to get real with yourself and decide, is it important enough to me? What current things am I doing that I could transform to incorporate exercise into them? You might go and have a coffee date with a girlfriend, which I think is one of the most important things you can do in life. Continue to socialize, have social time. But hey, if you're finding it hard to fit in your exercise as well, why doesn't that coffee date turn into a walk? You know, just walk together. It's as simple as that sometimes, and that kind of movement can start a chain of positive reactions in your brain that says, hey, getting out and moving is a good thing for me. And you might find yourself a year later actually kicking some serious exercise goals.
Yeah, people can do amazing things. I think because it's normal for our society to be so sedentary, people think that anyone being more than sedentary is sort of too much or abnormal.
Yes.
But bodies and people can do amazing things.
Oh, it's so true.
There just needs to be an appropriate balance of work and rest.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's very difficult to just keep cramming more and more activities and things, and, you know, just having more motivation to keep cramming your diary out more. You do actually have to prioritize and have a rebound or a recovery period after whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
So if you're always, you know, chasing the kids or chasing the job, you know, there may not be enough space for being motivated to prioritize exercise.
That's the thing. We said energy has to be present for motivation to happen. Like it's not enough to just know that you should or to want it. You need enough energy in your bank to devote to that activity. So if you don't have the energy, you won't be able to consistently make the choice.
The good news is, though, that if you do exercise regularly, it can be a great way to increase your energy levels, help the quality of the sleep that you are getting to be better. There's so many quality of life things that once you're into a good routine, or you have some experience and there's a system in place, that things are so much better. And you're doing things that you just couldn't conceive of before you began.
And I think that's what makes it hard for a lot of people, because they haven't yet experienced all those all those perks.
Yeah, and they don't have a role model or
Yeah,
any
there's
way
no one
to see whether they can achieve
Exactly.
the thing that is just
Exactly.
more of an abstract concept on the cover of a magazine.
Exactly. So I think we'll talk a bit more about how those people, like starting from where you're at. I mean, we talked about how my motivation has transformed from being extrinsic to intrinsic, and now, like, those extrinsic benefits are still there. I still, from my regular exercise, I acknowledge the fact that that gives me an in-shape body. Because I also care about what I eat. I acknowledge the fact that it helps my mental state. All of that is still there, but instead of becoming the primary goal, they've just become perks. They're just added perks on the side of me moving my body every day. And what's really become my motivation is I just really love doing it. There's particular things at the moment that I'm really into, and it's about the activity itself. And the relationships that I get to form as a result of those activities. Because if you look at people who are already well and truly down the track, exercising, and they've got all these amazing benefits and things to say, and they're saying, come on, do this, do that, do that. Well, you don't yet have anything tangible in your memory to connect that to. So it could be hard for you to just jump straight in and expect so much of yourself. Just start with, I am motivated to move daily, find something that you enjoy doing.
Yeah, and keeping in mind the actual end goal is to be happy and to be well and to feel fulfilled and satisfied.
And to enjoy that time.
And that looks different to different people.
Yep.
And if you're chasing someone else's version of happiness, then that might be, but it might not be your version of happiness.
And it might be hard to sustain.
Yeah, so that's what I want for people, just for them to be well and to be happy.
Whatever that means to them.
Yep.
Good. All right. We had a look at something called Vroom's expectancy theory, which we both found really interesting. Do you want to break it down?
Well, before we talk about Vroom, I thought it might be good to just mention Maslow. What Maslow says is that everyone at base has just needs that are physiological. So for safety and security, for food, for sex, and for warmth. And that's something that, for the survival of the human race, that's just sitting at the bottom of things that everyone needs. Then the step above that is like a social belonging thing. We need to be part of a community, and when that isn't happening, then things start to go wrong psychologically, and we have many problems. And then at the tip of that hierarchy of needs is feeling good about yourself and self-actualization. So that's expressed in things like having a hobby or having a passion in an activity. Things like religion and culture, are right at that tip of need. And understanding that, we as humans do have needs, and it's not literally just, food, air and water, but it's more complex than that, and it's tied into the socio-cultural context that you live in. Means that everyone's needs will be slightly different, but they are actually needs that you have. They're not just wants or preferences, but there are all of these needs that we have deep motivation to fulfill.
I think while you were talking about those needs, particularly the social belonging and the self, the one at the very top, what was that one? The
Self-actualization.
Self-actualization. I think, I know through my experience that exercise is a way to meet those needs. In our society, it is. So what I've found in my experience is that when I've tried out different types of exercise, particularly ones that would take me into a setting where I'm sharing the space with other people, that really helps my sense of belonging. And this can be this is really strong, I feel, when I watch our clients in our small group training. They say, oh yes, I need to get fit, so I'm going to come and use your personal training service. But really, being fit is one part of a complex motivation to exercise. our clients really love coming and sharing a space together with other people who have similar motivations to them. You can see it. They light up, they chat to each other. You can see it's a highlight of their week. I feel like that's a huge part of why exercise is so beneficial. And if you hook into that as a way to fulfill that social need in your life, that is an amazing motivator, and often can keep people coming back for more. And
yeah. Well, the psychological term is operant conditioning, or a positive feedback loop.
Yeah.
So that you can set up a positive reinforcement cycle where, you put on your shoes, you get out the door, you feel good, and that's the end of that session, and you have a bit of success, and that success builds on more success.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why, and our brains are influenced so much by little signs like that, little triggers. That's why I feel better as soon as I put my joggers on. I already feel more motivated as soon as I've got my exercise gear on. And we hear all those jokey things about, doing absolutely nothing in my activewear. And they're hilarious, but there's a reason why we like wearing the specific clothing to exercise, because that just might be the difference between getting us over the line to move one day. Once you put those clothes on, you take more ownership over the fact that you're going to do that type of activity. You're wearing those clothes for a reason, and your brain has the signal flooding through
Powerful.
it. Yeah, it's really powerful. It's and it's helpful. So, people can bag out activewear companies all they like, but I actually think companies like Lorna Jane, what they have done for women in terms of just making them associate positivity and happiness with movement is really powerful, because a lot of us need that push to start with before we can actually take ownership over it ourselves. So yeah, I think that's a hugely interesting factor. And that's why people often say, here's some motivational tips and tricks, lay out your clothes the night before, this, that, the other. I used to do all of that stuff, and that stuff helped me so much. Exercise in the morning before your brain figures out what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's amazing advice. The longer you leave it through your day, the more things that will pop up that could take the place of exercise. And they're fair enough. They're actually justifiably important things. In fact, sometimes exercise seems a bit self-indulgent. Hey, I'm going to spend an hour working on my body, and it is actually a luxury for some people. But you've got to decide, is it important enough to me to specifically set aside the time? And to start with, that might mean you actively say, I'm going to go to bed at 9:30 instead of 10:30. I'm going to put my device in a drawer so that I don't scroll through my Instagram feed in bed. And I'm going to wake up at 6 o'clock so that I can fit in 45 minutes of movement before work. I just am, no arguments brain. I'm going to do it. It might take, months of doing that until you actually then start to love the doing it itself, rather than, I'm just tricking my brain into this pattern of behavior. You'll wake up one morning wanting to go on your run, and you'll realize you didn't lay out your clothes, but it doesn't matter because they're just in the drawer. You'll just put them on and you'll go, Yeah, but I feel like you've got to meet yourself where you're at with your motivation, and don't be afraid to use those tips and tricks, but also keep in mind that you're gonna have to own it if you want to make it sustainable. So use those little motivational tools to start with, but have in mind that this exercise is going to be something that you're choosing to do for you, and seek out something you enjoy. That would be, yeah.
Well, I think this next thing that we're going to talk about, Vroom's expectancy theory, is a really great way to break down why we do what we do, and to understand how we can maybe create a new and better habit, or a better way of doing something that we feel that we should or that we want to do, but we haven't quite figured out why it just hasn't magically happened yet.
Yeah.
Can you explain?
Yeah, sure. So Vroom's expectancy theory is that your motivation, your level of motivation is influenced by three factors. And when those three factors are all high, so they're multiplied by each other. So when they're all high, your motivation will be high. But if even just one of them is low,
It's going to
it's going to significantly affect your level of motivation to do something. So it's not specifically related to exercise, but we can apply it. So the three factors are expectancy, which is your perceived probability of success, instrumentality, which is the connection of success and reward, and value, the value of obtaining the goal. So I'll just explain that a little bit more because I feel like it took me a while to wrap my head around this. Expectancy isn't your perceived probability of achieving your goal. It's the can I perform. So say the goal is I want to get fit. Your expectancy is, okay, well, to get fit, I need to be able to exercise 5 times a week. Am I even capable of doing that? Do I perceive that I will be successful in getting up and exercising 5 times a week? Okay, so that's expectancy. Instrumentality is the connection of success in the process to the end goal. So do I actually believe that if I do the work, if I put in the effort 5 times a week exercising, will I get fit? Will I get that reward that I want? Is it going to work? And the value, which is the third element, is do I actually care about that goal enough to do what needs to be done?
Yes.
Do I actually want it badly enough to get up 5 times a week and exercise? Or, and this doesn't have to just be on a scale of, should I or should I not exercise? If we're talking about people like us who regularly exercise, well, our motivation to exercise might now be to work towards a specific goal. I mean, I know that I, at the moment, am working towards particular goals in CrossFit, and I've got to ask myself when I walk into that CrossFit box, do I believe that I can do the work? Do I believe that the work is going to result in the goal? I really want to learn how to do toes to bar, and I really want to learn how to do kipping pull-ups. I know what I need to do in order to get there. Do I believe that doing all of the practice that I know I should do, all the drills, the regular going to CrossFit 5 or 6 times a week, do I believe that that's going to help me achieve that goal? And then the value side, okay, well, that's actually going to take hours and hours for me. Do I care enough? Is it important to me? And we cannot judge, I don't think we can judge other people's value on achieving a goal. Like, it is important to me at this point in my life to achieve those skills. It's important to me to work towards these things that I perceive as valuable skills for me. And the reason it's important isn't because I think it's going to make me a better person in some way. It's because I really enjoy the process of setting my sights on something that I can't yet do and battling through, the self-doubt and all of these things that come up, because I've trained my brain to love that process of challenge, which is something that I think is counterintuitive for us as humans. We like to take the path of least resistance. We want to do what's easiest and most convenient. But then, hang on, why are there so many just amazing people out there doing amazing things? Do you think there's something living inside us?
Yeah. People do, on average, want to create things. They do respond to a challenge.
Yeah.
The challenge needs to be appropriate. It needs to be difficult enough to be worth, engaging with, and not too difficult that it becomes disheartening.
Yeah, and we talk about that with smart goal setting. Like, your goal has to be attainable for you.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing with motivation, and that's what we were saying before. Start with where you're at. And I mean, when we're talking about dedicating so much time and energy into achieving something, this doesn't have to just be exercise. When I was growing up, my household was all about musical theory, playing musical instruments, and I dedicated hours and hours to practicing the piano. And at first it was just because I knew I should, because that's what my parents expected of me, and but after a while, it created this, like, I don't know, I looked up to my mother, who is an amazing pianist, and I just, you see these examples of humanity at its best around you when people put in consistent effort and work hard and they've got drive and they achieve something that you just think is just incredible and beautiful. And I think a part of all of us would love to be the kind of person who can do that, whether it be in music or in fitness, or someone writes an amazing story, or we want to be able to create something that's worth stopping and listening to or watching.
And right at the other end of the spectrum, we still have motivation to do things that aren't fantastic. Like, my anecdote that I remember from childhood is, I remember being stuck on the couch after I'd broken my leg and I couldn't do anything. Yet I spent days practicing flipping cards, like just ordinary deck of cards, from where I was sitting on the couch about 5 meters across the room into a hat. And
very worthwhile.
And I was motivated to do that because it was something that I reckon I could do, and it looked challenging, but there was no extrinsic reward associated with that. There was actually no one else around to impress, but there's this thing in people and in me that looks kind of difficult. I wonder if that can be done.
Yes, the possibility, I think.
Yeah, some curiosity,
we're attracted to our potential.
Yeah, and then you do it a couple of times and you think, if I did that a couple of hundred more times, I would be better at that thing. And that in itself, that is an intrinsic kind of motivational factor that, depends on the activity and whether you're interested or not, but everyone has that.
Yeah.
To think, I could be just a bit better if I had the chance, or if I, was able to just do a little bit more.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you're flipping cards into a hat from 20 paces.
Oh, yes. Like we all wish we could do. But I think that's really key when it comes to motivation to exercise, because I think a lot of people don't believe in themselves. And I know that sounds cheesy, but they think, oh, well, I could never do anything, that impressive, so I just won't even try. Well, like,
so they have low expectancy.
So, they have low expectancy. If we're talking about Vroom's theory, they don't actually think they're capable of doing something that amazing. And I think people sell themselves short constantly. And I hear it verbally. We say, oh, no, I can't do that. Oh, I'd never be able to do that. I'm guilty of doing that, but it becomes really self-limiting, and I think we only say that because we're really afraid to go in too confident and then prove ourselves wrong. So we'd rather from the outset say, oh, well, I can't do that, but then sneakily, if we try a little bit in the safety of our own home when no one can see us, and we realize, hey, hang on, maybe I can do that, we feel like there's some security in not building ourselves up too much, before we're sure we can do something. But I think you've just got to be willing to flip that on its head and be a newbie. Whether you're right at the start of your exercise journey and you've hardly done any, or whether you're like Tim and I, just coming into this new world of CrossFit, we had to be happy to suck. Like you have to be happy to not be as good as the people you see around you. Because you can't expect... what is that saying? Don't be unhappy with the results you didn't get from the work you didn't put in, or something. It's like, if you haven't done all those hours of work, if you don't understand or know what needs to be done, and you haven't put it into practice, of course you're not going to be able to do it yet. So, there's this thing that I've changed in my brain lately. The word can't, cannot, just to be clear, that no longer exists in my vocabulary. I changed it. I said, instead of saying I can't do this, I'm going to say, maybe I can do that, and let's just see what happens if I try. And, when I've been learning my handstands, which for me is a huge thing that I'm working on at the moment with movement, that's just a really great way to think about it. I have no idea yet how good I'm going to be able to get. I know I've improved heaps, but instead of saying, oh, I can't do what that person over there can do, that person who's had, 12 years of gymnastics as a child and who has been consistently working on their handstand for the next 6 after that, like, I shouldn't look at them and say, oh, I can't do that. I should say, well, like, yeah, maybe one day I can, and let's see what happens when I try.
Okay, so that's if you've got low expectancy. What if you have low instrumentality? So you just can't connect doing the work with actually getting the reward. How do you overcome feeling like, well, so what if I do all that effort and nothing comes of it? What do you do?
I think the only cure for that, there's a few strategies I think that people can use to overcome that. So what I would say is most commonly hard for people is they think, well, even if I do put in all this work, how do I know I'm going to get fit? Or how do I know I'm going to lose my weight? Blah, blah, blah. I think you won't know until you do it, and you cannot just do it for 2 weeks and think, it's not working. Come on, I've been going to the gym every day for 2 weeks. How am I not yet fit?
Yeah.
It's
10 sit-ups.
Yeah.
Do I have abs yet?
Yeah, exactly. Tim literally just lifted up his shirt to check for his abs. Yeah. Anyway, I think there is no easy way around this instrumentality part. You're going to have to put in the hard yards. If you want to know, will regular exercise help me achieve my goals? You're going to have to do it. Treat yourself like you're the experiment.
Okay, that's a bit of tough love from you. What I'd say is that you can hack that a little bit, and you can take your end goal and you can give yourself some
in-betweeny goals.
Yeah, you can give yourself steps to sort of, this stage final success.
Yeah.
So you can say, you could set up an extrinsic reward system for yourself, and you can, put $50 in an envelope and say, when I successfully exercise for 2 weeks in a row, I will go buy some new shoes, or whatever $50 gets you these days. Or you can, instead of saying, I want to achieve my end goal, and that's the only sort of future thing that you've got in mind that ends up being too far away for your brain to handle, you set up smaller sub-goals. I want to be able to run that 5K park run in under 30 minutes, but what I'm really looking forward to is next week, I'm just going to take a minute off my previous time, and that gives you stepping stones towards that end reward, and makes the daily performance, the daily effort more worthwhile. Park run's great because it happens every Saturday. It's free. If you haven't heard about it, Google Park Run and sign up and do it. But it means
Park Run, would you like to sponsor our podcast?
They're a volunteer-run organisation. Go volunteer at your local park run.
Yeah, do it.
But it means that you're going to wake up so that you can get to your park by 8 a.m. on a Saturday, and it makes the motivation to go for a run on a Tuesday and a Thursday so much better, because you know that if you do those couple of runs through the week, you're going to get that faster time on a Saturday. And rather than just, I should run because I want to, there's sort of this external system, and there's other people there that are also performing that same activity that really make real the value of enjoying that activity.
I think that's really key. Reflecting every couple of weeks when you're starting out with your exercise, and instead of thinking, have I lost the weight yet? Say your goal was to lose weight. Instead of saying that after only 2 weeks of doing it, because 2 weeks can feel like an eternity. If you are starting a new exercise regime and you've gone from 0 to 4 times a week exercise just in 2 weeks, that's going to feel really full on. So what I say to my clients is, in the first 2 weeks that you're with us, don't just say, do I feel heaps fitter? Do I feel heaps thinner? Say, have I enjoyed being here in these first 2 weeks? Am I enjoying the process? Am I enjoying the challenge of getting up? Am I enjoying the psychological changes that I see? Just ask, does this feel good? Does it feel good? And if the answer is no, then you might be doing the wrong kind of exercise for you, or it might not be the right environment. You know, if you're someone who's dragging themselves to a gym and trying to fluff their way through a workout by themselves, but you don't actually know really what to do, you might be in the wrong setting for your start, your intro to exercise. You might need a bit more guidance than that, and that's fine. There's people out there who are there for you. I'm one of those people. You know, I've decided, well, I want to influence people positively, so I'm going to go and educate myself so that I can spread useful information to others. And that is now one of my jobs. So there are support systems out there available. Because that's the other thing with instrumentality, isn't it? When people say, is my effort going to lead to success? Well, you need to actually know what kind of effort to be putting in. Like, you need to know what's the appropriate types of things to do in order to reach your goal. Because if you say, well, I really want to lose weight, so to do that I'm going to exercise, but you don't change your diet at all, it's kind of like you actually do need some education and understanding of how everything works. And we all have a responsibility, I think, to learn the basics of, you know, movement and nutrition, and what's good for our body and how to reduce our risk of disease. And I think that if you're not doing that, it's going to be very hard for you to become motivated to move if you don't have the basic understanding of the benefits that your movement will bring you.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Last point before a summary?
I guess so. There's so much more we could say. I just want to talk about the value of obtaining your goal first, because something that we thought about was your priorities. We all have them. Time's probably, arguably, the most precious thing that we've got. I read an article recently online that broke down our life into some visual representations of years or months, weeks. And when you look at it like that, when you see little boxes that are getting ticked off, how many weeks you have left in your life, it shows you just how precious your time is, especially the time that you have to share with the people who are important to you. So, do I value obtaining the goal enough to put in the time? That's going to be different for everyone. And like we said before, when it comes to exercising, if you feel like your exercise is taking you away from other things that you value more, then you need to find a balance that's right for you. It's undeniable that everyone should be exercising or moving their bodies regularly. We know that for our health. But we've got to find ways that make it that it makes sense with all our other values that we're also trying to achieve. Tim and I feel really lucky because we've been able to make exercise a really beautiful, helpful part in our relationship. It's something that we do together. It's something that we feel helps us to meet a whole bunch of amazing other people, but also it brings us joy sharing our love for it with each other. You know, you may be someone who was just like me as a kid, who didn't really, exercise wasn't part of their life. And to change that belief in your brain, like you may have lived 30 years of life without exercise, and you don't have the positive feedback loop set up because you don't have much experience of exercise as a necessary thing. And you have society telling you should be doing it, but until you've actually done it or enough times to see for yourself the benefits and feel the benefits, it's really hard to change that belief. So often what it takes is putting people in your life who are going to help you through that, and help you by their example and by their encouragement. And that's, I guess, what I want to finish on is, if you are someone who is motivated to move daily, you exercise regularly, and you have the love of movement, I would encourage you to look out to those people for whom it's not a part of their life. And you don't need to go and be all preachy to them, but lead by example. Like, it's a widely acknowledged fact that we as a Western society are far too sedentary. So don't be afraid of this gift that you have now, which is motivation. It is a gift. There's no denying that. It's something that's very valuable, and a lot of people really wish they had it, but are struggling to find how to get it. If you've got it, think of how you can influence other people positively so that they can get it too. It's not enough just to want to do something or to know that we should. You also need the knowledge of how to achieve the goal, and you need the energy to carry it out. And yeah, I think we all have a huge responsibility to each other. As humans, spread your energy and your love. I have more than enough to go around, so come get some from me.
Do you want to know my 4 take-home points?
Yes, please.
Okay, so as we were talking, I jotted down my take-home points. Number 1 was set up positive feedback loops. So think about what's going to give you that positive feeling. Do it, reflect on it, and do it again. Number 2 was to hack operant conditioning. So by making smaller goals and connecting this with that, by putting on your clothes, by creating environments where you are enabled to do the things that you actually want to do.
Taking the path of least resistance kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, optimizing your environment.
Yeah.
Number 3 is to embrace being a learner.
Yes.
You
that's
cannot
key,
master it before you've begun. All that is required is that you start, and that you accept not knowing, and that you just blatantly suck as much information out of people who are enthused about the thing as you can, because
be a sponge.
They're going to be jazzed to share it because they love it.
You meet anyone who's into exercise and a specific type, they will be dying to tell you all about it.
And number 4 is, based on what you were just saying before I started talking, was to connect with community.
Yeah.
So don't do it alone, but meet up with that friend. Actually strengthen your relationship and go for your coffee walk date together, or join a gym and meet people and live life.
Yep. I guarantee you that anyone that you look for in your life, that you look up to as an example of someone who's really fit, and you can tell they have this love for exercise. If you're bewildered and you think, man, how does that person motivate themselves to get out of bed every day? Go and actually ask them, because their answer will probably be very similar to mine. They don't need to even question it anymore. They love doing it because they love doing it. And if you want to get to that point, those people are a really great place to start. Go and ask them. They will be more than willing to share with you the journey that they've gone through. And I can guarantee, if they weren't brought up exercising regularly, there will be a really interesting pathway that they took in order to get to that place. Quite often, exercise became an answer to something that was missing in their life, or they fell in love with a community of people. Like, there's all different reasons, and you need to find what's going to work for you, and definitely use the people around you who you do look up to as a source of information. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Lovely. Well, we will speak to you next week. This has been really fun. This is like my favorite topic ever. Thanks, guys, for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Welliverse.
Bye.
Bye.